Eliot,
Yeah, sí, señora.
I am sure that you will be quite in demand after the publication of your latest book, The Self-Fed Farm and Garden. So thank you very, very much for your time. It's a great honor for me to be able to have this conversation with you today.
Yeah, and it is a pleasure for me to speak to someone in Spain electronically.
Well, Eliot, I have read several of your books, and that's why I know you have been farming since 1966, which is 60 years now. And my first question, Eliot, what were you doing just before you started farming in 1965? And what motivated you to dedicate your life to grow food?
I was a adventurer, a semi-pro adventurer. I used to climb mountains. I used to rock climb. I used to race down rivers in kayaks. And one day I thought I should try to find something more socially redeeming in my future than just the next mountain. And I read a book, and it made small farming sound like an adventure. So I was fortunately able to buy a small piece of land. Unfortunately, it was covered by forest. So first I had to cut down the trees and remove the stumps. But that gave me a piece of land that I could slowly transform into a small farm. And that was such satisfying work that I kept up with it for 60 years.
I know because I read it that you studied Spanish literature at university. Is that right?
Sí, señor. He estudiado la literatura español un año en Madrid, en la Universidad de Madrid.
Ah, in Madrid.
Sí.
I am from Madrid. Why did you choose to study Spanish?
I became interested in Spanish on one of my adventures, and that was down in Chile. One summer, I was ski racing because Chile in the summer is winter compared to here. And so I went down and participated in ski races all summer. And that got me interested in South American literature and South American civilization. And so at that point, I was going to major in college in geology, but that was boring. And I decided to change my major to Spanish.
Spaniards, Eliot, are quite lacking in practical books on organic farming. And since we are going to talk about organic farming, I want to share this with you.
Okay.
We are lacking in this kind of books, which is not the case in English. And I want to ask you, have you ever found a good Spanish farming book?
Yes. there is one group that tries to either find or create books about la agricultura biológica in español, and I don't remember what the name was right now, but I'm not sure, but I have always been surprised that there is no major book about organic farming in Spanish by a Spanish author.
Your market garden, Eliot, is known for being extraordinarily productive. Can you provide some details about what you have been producing in recent years, at what scale, and for which clients?
We are growing on 3 acres, which is about a hectare, a little over a hectare. And we have been selling directly to customers who are going to eat the food, but we have also been selling to stores. And we grow, I think, 50 different crops, and in large enough quantities to sell them to stores. And despite our cold winters here, we can grow them in greenhouses that we don't have to put heat into if we choose only the hardiest crops, the most cold resistant. And so that has kept us busy both summer and winter. And let's see, a year and a half ago, my wife and I, who have been farming together, retired from what would be called maraîchage in France. And we leased the farm to a young couple who were anxious to do what we had been doing. And after 50 years of doing it, I was tired. And so I was only too happy to be an author again rather than a full-time market gardener.
Yeah, but you continued with a smaller garden, but with a family garden, because I could read in your book that you still cultivate a small plot with your wife. Is that true?
Yes. The two of us have a home garden where we grow just enough food to feed ourselves. Yes.
Could you comment on what your farm was like when you arrived 60 years ago?
When I arrived, there was no farm here. There was merely a piece of land, and it was in forest. And I had no money to buy farmland, but the owners of that small piece of land with trees on it were kind enough to sell it to me for a price that I could afford. And so my first 5 or 6 years here, I spent most of my time cutting down trees, digging out the stumps, bringing in fertility from nearby abandoned farms like spoiled hay. My land is near the ocean, so I was able to bring in seaweed, alga maritima, and slowly we created a soil that we were able to make more fertile every year. And now we do not bring in any outside soil fertility. We grow it all here, and it makes for much cleaner and purer food.
I heard that your organic matter levels in your soil were very low when you started, and
Yes.
now they are quite high.
Yes. But if you do something for 50 or 60 years, you will eventually achieve what you're after.
Yeah, but the leap is quite impressive, no? What was the initial level, and what is the organic matter level today?
Well, the initial pH of this soil was 4.2. And I'm not sure what the initial percentage of organic matter was, but it was very low because this is a sandy soil that used to be covered by spruce and fir trees. And, you know, I think, I don't know if I've even seen a figure recently, but it certainly grows excellent crops. So whatever its percentage of organic matter, it is very, the crops like it.
Yeah. Today, Eliot, many of us in Europe have to turn to North American farming books, like your first book, The New Organic Grower, to educate ourselves in organic farming. However, when you started, you had to make the opposite journey, seeking knowledge about good farming practices in European books and papers. Is that true?
Yes, very true. Because back when I started, the European organic farmers were far ahead of the American organic farmers. They used techniques that we didn't know about. And that's because organic market gardening in France was established for so long that, I mean, back in the 19th century, the best market gardening in the world was happening right in the city of Paris.
Yeah.
There were farms in the city that were supplying Paris with fresh food all year long. And they were amazingly productive. And they were able to do it because back in those days, everything moved by horsepower. And so there were stables all over Paris. And they used to bring the horse manure from the stables, both as fertilizer and as heat in the winter. And these were known as hotbeds, I guess. But you know, back in 1850, they were producing melons and cucumbers in May. I mean, these growers were about as good as any that have ever existed.
Yeah, the maraîcher.
Maraîchage.
Yeah.
See,
So that was for you like an inspiration.
a great inspiration, yes. And there were enough of the old time growers around whom I could visit, who were very open and helpful in showing me all the techniques that they were using.
Your latest book has the subtitle "A Return to the Roots of the Organic Method."
Yes.
Why do you think that nowadays we hardly talk about organic anymore, and instead we talk about regenerative agriculture?
A lot of large-scale farmers in the US are now being criticized for how many herbicides they use, like glyphosate. And most of them are trying to pretend that they are not doing anything wrong, but rather have invented a new safe system they call regenerative. But the truth is, the reason they need to regenerate their soil is because they have degenerated it through using chemicals. And they don't like organic because we believe we can do everything they claim they can do without needing herbicides. And they receive a lot of criticism about their excessive use of glyphosate. So, yeah, they've been trying to establish the word regenerative in order to replace organic. And yeah, it doesn't, the best food is still produced by organic growers. But the problem is, many of them acknowledge that the key in the soil that makes organic farming possible is organic matter. And so they are now bringing in organic matter from everywhere. And a lot of that organic matter is not pure. A lot of it has residues of our unfortunately polluted world. And so in my book, where I say that I'm trying to bring organic back to its earliest purity, that's exactly why I now only use green manures to add organic matter to my farm. I do not bring in composts or manure from outside sources.
Before we jump into green manure, Eliot, I want to share you a personal chapter of my life regarding to this, because I suffered from herbicide contamination in manure that destroyed an entire year of my tomato and my broad bean production in 2020. Nowadays, I rely on composted horse manure from a nearby equestrian center, and the abundance of worms in the composted manure gives me a certain level of confidence, although I know perfectly well that it is practically impossible to find pure manures unless one raises their own animals. And I believe I remember reading in one of your earlier books that you raised geese and ducks, and I think you raised chickens too. Do you think that part from the benefit of the eggs and the meat, raising birds and other livestock is a good idea for obtaining trusted manure and be less dependent on external inputs?
Yes. When we raised chickens for eggs, we raised them on a grass pasture. And so, first off, the land was in grass, in some sort of livestock mixture. And the birds would scratch and poop all over that area. And then the following year, I would till that up. And that was a great addition of fertility. Now, we only fed organic feed to our chickens because unfortunately in the US, all conventional grains, even if they're not kept weed-free with glyphosate, before harvest are dosed with glyphosate to desiccate them, to dry them down so they're easier to harvest. So there are glyphosate residues in all conventional grains. And unfortunately, this is true everywhere, once the world learns that there is money to be made in something, and once organic became popular, all sorts of people started selling compost to organic farms. And that compost was either made from organic waste products, or it was directly or illegally not from an organic farm. And so even especially in the US, the majority of organic vegetables are grown on polluted compost or polluted manure. And I've seen this for many years, and I decided to write a book that suggested that we could do better.
Your book really deals with how to be self-sufficient in maintaining the fertility of our farms by using green manures. Could you please, Eliot, explain what a green manure is?
Yes, a green manure is composed of any plants that you grow on your soil that can be turned in and decompose in your soil and add fertility. Now, that means tillage. And what people don't understand, especially the people who are fascinated by no-till, if you don't get the organic matter in your soil to decompose, you aren't creating any new fertility. So if you put organic matter in your soil and it doesn't decompose, what you have is just a soil with a lot of organic matter in it. But by not tilling, these people think that they are not harming the soil. But I don't harm my soil when I till it. I merely encourage the organic matter in my soil to decompose into food for a new generation of plants. That's about as clear as I can make it.
I want to read you, Eliot, a piece of best-selling book of regenerative agriculture. So I want you to comment these words because it's very related with what you are saying now. It's about tillage. Tillage destroys soil structure, the home for soil biology, reducing water infiltration. With no-till farming, in contrast, there is more moisture available to grow plants due to increased rainfall infiltration as a result of better soil aggregation, increased organic matter, and adequate residue on the surface, which acts as a shield against evaporation. And in other point of the page, you can read, the origin of the no-till movement can be traced back to Edward Faulkner, a radical agronomist and farmer from Ohio who declared in his 1943 book, Plowman's Folly, the truth is that no one has ever advanced a scientific reason for plowing.
Yes, and what Edward Faulkner was against, he wasn't against tillage. He was against using the plow as the tillage implement because it buried the surface organic matter way down at the bottom of the furrow where it could do no good for soil fertility. And Edward Faulkner was 100% in favor of shallow tillage and shallow non-inversion tillage. He didn't believe in turning over the soil. And so the authors like the one you just read, who try and make Edward Faulkner the father of no-till, unfortunately didn't read past the title of his book, because when you read into the book, he is 100% in favor of tillage. He even recommended making small motor-powered rototillers for home gardeners to turn all the surface organic matter into the soil where it would do some good.
The ancient Greek and Roman agronomists already spoke about certain crops, especially legumes like lupins, that
Yes.
were shown to be buried later as a green manure. Why do, especially in the last 1 or 2 decades, we now hear about cover crops, but not about green manures at all?
Yes, cover crops are green manures, but rather than being tilled in, they are just left to die on the surface or are killed with an herbicide like glyphosate. But if you do not mix those residues into the surface of the soil, they don't have any effect. And their effect when you mix them into the surface of the soil is, as they decompose, they give off organic matter, this terrible, they give off carbon dioxide, this terrible thing we want to get rid of. But if you don't have carbon dioxide in your soil given off by decomposing organic matter, you do not have any carbonic acid. And carbonic acid in your soil operates on all the soil particles, which are just made of ground up rocks. And carbonic acid is much more effective than rain in etching minerals from those soil particles that are then available for the plants growing in your soil. And, there, in my book, I put in a quote from a researcher who normally puts down organic, but in the quote in the book, he is 100% in favor of tillage if you till in lots of biomass. And that biomass, that extra organic matter in the soil, overcomes any negative effects on tilling. And you suddenly have better pest control and all of these other benefits of having tilled organic matter into the top 4 inches of your soil. The trouble with all the literature from the regenerative people is that if what I've been doing for the past 60 years didn't work, I wouldn't have kept doing it. But it worked so well. We had so few pest problems. We had such unbelievably high quality vegetables. And even though I am only an hour's drive from the University of Maine, which has a large agriculture department north of me, in my 60 years here, not once has a professor from the University of Maine come down to visit this farm that is doing what they declare is impossible, to see whether they're actually doing it. I mean, are they really interested in agriculture, or are they only interested in maintaining the myth that chemicals are necessary?
It's unbelievable, Eliot. I'm sure that when you started to become interested in organic agriculture, in those times when Silent Spring by Rachel Carson was recently published, there was a lot of talk about pesticides. One had to learn organic practices, yes, but also know what conventional farmers used, a certain culture around pesticides, in order to better defend the poison-free product that you want to put in the market. Just as I see that there is no talk of organic agriculture anymore, I have noticed in recent years that there is hardly any discussion about pesticides. It's as if they don't exist, despite the fact that never in history have so many pesticides have been used, and
Yes.
so dangerously as now. And my question here, Eliot, is, do you have the same feeling that for some reason pesticides are not being discussed anymore?
Well, the public dislikes the idea of pesticides because they understand how casually these have been used and how carelessly these have been used. In fact, prior to DDT, the most popular pesticide used in the US was something called lead arsenate, which was a combination of lead and arsenic, two very unhealthy
poisonous, yeah.
poisons. Now, however, lead and arsenic don't go away. They are elements, and they are in your soil and on your vegetables. Now, to me, and this is before I knew anything about farming and had never grown a plant, but the idea of spreading lead and arsenic on people's food before they ate it was the most ridiculous idea I had ever heard of.
Yeah. I have heard you say that the agrochemical industry, which is the one that really makes money in agriculture, is bothered by the word organic, but has embraced the word regenerative. But I think that you already explained why is this going, no?
And if you look at the history of Rachel Carson after she wrote Silent Spring, she was attacked ferociously by all of the agricultural chemical companies because they were trying to discredit her book. But they never succeeded because she was such a meticulous researcher. One of the many sad stories since she was, at having finished that book, dying from cancer, and they didn't make the last years of her life very easy for her.
Yeah, it's quite sad, that story. And jumping into your production, Eliot, in nutritional terms, if we talk about a carrot that is being produced in your garden, and one carrot from a farm that is dedicated exclusively to growing carrots, conventional farm, obviously, which are the majority of the carrots that we find in the supermarket. What differences we can find in those two carrots in nutritional terms?
Yeah, that would be a very good question, because they are both carrots. They both came from a carrot seed. And it depends what nutrients the carrot needs to grow and whether they are naturally present in the soil in which it was grown. And if chemicals have to be used, chemical fertilizers, to put those nutrients in the soil, they are not as beneficial from the point of view of creating a healthy carrot as nutrients from compost or from green manures and other things. And these are very difficult questions, and I don't think they have ever been answered to anybody's hang on a second. Yes.
Yeah. How much longer are you going to be?
How much longer will be on this?
What do you think? 15 minutes is possible?
15 minutes.
Yeah, we'll walk around and
Okay,
get a rehash.
good.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah. I overscheduled today.
Yeah. So Eliot, let's go into the content of your book. I was surprised by the difference you found in the magazines about organic farming and organic gardening. You say that organic gardening has been bombarded with all kinds of organic inputs, while organic farming has always been more focused on processes rather than products.
Yes. And that's, I mean, the processes are processes like making compost from pure agricultural waste. And compost then became so popular that people were making compost from any organic wastes that they could find. And those organic wastes were not necessarily pure. And that is why so many of the purchased composts are not what I would want to put into my soil if I were trying to grow clean food for people. And the farmers who dismay me more than any others are the ones who say, well, if you just buy enough cheap compost and spread it 6 inches thick on top of the soil, you won't have any weeds because the seeds in the soil underneath can't come up through that. And then you can grow all the vegetables you want. But what you have done is just over fertilized that soil. And yeah, you don't have an organic farm. You just have a 6-inch deep compost that is polluting the moisture in the soil underneath it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you are not very in with the no-dig approach or with the no-till approach. Yeah, I can understand why. And in your book, Eliot, you mention different combinations of green manures. Perhaps special attention should be given to the combination of rye and veg, which lasts 19 months. Can you talk a little about this long cycle green manure, how this works and its benefits?
Yes, the reason I refer to it as a 19-month green manure is that I sow it in October. And that's because both rye and vetch are very cold hardy and will germinate in the cool fall and stay alive through the winter and still be alive in the spring. And they are by then very well established. And I let them keep growing until early August. And by then the rye is 2 meters tall, and the heads are covered with grain. And the vetch vines are crawling up the rye straw and are also loaded with seeds. And at that point, I mow the field with a flail mower as close to the soil as I can. And I leave all those seeds there, and the first rainstorm germinates them, and it grows up to look like a golf fairway. And I leave it there through the next winter. And since these seeds, as I say, germinate in the fall and don't mind the cold. And by then, I have the benefit of the straw and the roots of the rye and vetch. And this is the large biomass green manure that has made more difference in creating a fertile soil out of the nothing we had at the start. That anyway, I think that has been the main creator of soil fertility here. A lot of people use rye and vetch without leaving it over the following summer, like I am. So they will terminate the rye and vetch in April or May, and it has just that one winter there. But I get so much more organic matter from it by allowing it to stay that next summer. And I am doing this on a third of my farm. And that's because that rye and vetch, those crops follow storage crops like potato and cabbage and carrots. And I grow those storage crops on about a third of my acreage. And so every year, I move those storage crops to a different third of the farm. But this use of the land for growing rye and vetch in the winter and that next summer moves around the farm. And so I've never thought I was losing anything in the process, because it does such an amazing job of putting in clean, grown on site organic matter. And the beauty of green manures, if I plant them at the end of the growing season and leave them there over winter and turn them under the next spring, they are growing while I sleep. I don't have to do anything. And all the organic matter and soil improvement, it's right in the soil where they've grown. This is about as nice a system as anyone could ever have.
And do you think, Eliot, that there is something like a minimum scale for a market garden that aims to be profitable by relying solely on green manures for its fertility?
Well, yes, it would be nice to have a couple of hectares, but because many of these green manures are fairly expansive. But no, I think green manures are always listed as being scale neutral. That is, they don't care about the size of the farm, because they work on any scale. And yeah, in our home garden, we plant a grass legume pasture mix on half of it in the spring, and let that grow all summer long without cutting it or anything. And we finally turn it under the following spring. And then we grow vegetables where we have turned it under. And we put the other half of our home garden into that same mixture. And research has always found that sod is an unbelievably good way to reconstitute the initial virgin fertility of soils for vegetables. And that's what we've got. So we do that because back when I was running the farm, I was paying a lot of attention every day to making sure, okay, I know what crop is coming on this plot next. I need to plant this or that specific green manure there. But in the home garden, I don't want to have to be paying such close attention. And the idea that this sod sits there and takes care of itself and takes care of the soil is one of the best benefits to someone who has retired from day-to-day work.
One of the things I appreciate most about compost, aside from the fertility it provides and its ability to retain moisture, is the texture of the soil, Eliot. In clayey soils, for example, in summer, they can easily these soils can easily crack when it gets hot, but a thin layer of compost prevents those cracks.
Yes.
And when you sow or weed on a bed with compost, you don't stumble over plants, which really makes the work much easier. Is it possible with green manures to achieve a smooth surface texture of the soil similar to compost?
Oh yes, yes. If you are going to discontinue a green manure, it's always a good idea to mow it with a flail mower, and cut it up into small particles. And if you turn that in with a rototiller, you end up with a perfectly beautiful surface. All of those small bits of organic matter are mixed through the top 4 inches of the soil and are decomposing and making it more fertile for you.
Eliot, one of the last questions, since you have to go. Aside from raising a family, having intensively cultivated the land for over half a century, and having written several books, you have invented some revolutionary tools like the tilther. And I am very curious, when you come up with the idea of the tilther, and what role has the inventor and designer aspect played in your life?
Whenever I look at a problem in the garden, I'm always wondering if there isn't a better tool to either prepare the soil or put transplants in more effectively. And I have that sort of mind. And I think maybe it's because I'm too lazy to do it stupidly. And I would like to. So there's a picture in the book of me using a tool to mix compost into the soil in a greenhouse. It's a long handle tool. It was what we used to use to do what we now do with the tilther. And it was called the human rototiller, and everybody hated it. So I said, okay, we have to have a better way to do that. And the idea that we could combine a cordless drill with a specially made soil mixer was so perfect when we finally achieved it. Everybody was going, yay! No more human rototiller.
This is one question I wanted to ask you, because You are a person that invents tools, grow the land, write books, and I am very curious about. I'm sure that apart from that, you have the ability to organize your time very good. Is that true, Eliot?
Yes, yes. I don't like to be incompetent at something I'm doing. And so I always try to figure out ways to make my time more effective by planning and yeah. I think anybody who can make a living at market gardening, which I refer to as the most relentless job you will ever have. And by that I mean there is no time off, because if you have greenhouses and you want to go into town and leave the farm for a while, you have to worry about whether the sun is going to come out and going to overheat while you are gone. There's no time off. So, yeah, it is a relentless way to make a living. But the quality of the product you're growing, we grow carrots that we plant in the middle of August and leave in the ground over winter and slide a greenhouse over them. And then we harvest them from out of the cold soil under the greenhouse all winter long. And these are renowned in our markets as candy carrots. They are so sweet from having been treated that way. And my wife was delivering one day at the local store we sell to, and the produce manager came out and said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. There is a man waiting in the parking lot because his daughter refuses to go to school without one of your carrots in her lunchbox." And I was in that store, a couple of days later, and this little kid came up to me and he looks up at me and he says, "Are you the carrot people?" Anyone who succeeds in getting children to love vegetables is doing something right. And so I have to tell you that the next person I'm supposed to speak with is waiting outside the door.
So, Eliot, thank you so much for your time. It has been a great honor for me, and talk to you.
Well, Fernando, it has been so nice to meet you over Zoom. And hopefully one day we will either meet in Spain or the US, and we can sit and have a couple of glasses of wine together.
It would be fantastic, Eliot. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.